Hello everybody, my name is Orandraku, and with my jail build and several variants. So, first of all, the build is Hot Dogger, Alpha Team, Counter Surveillance, Marksman, Kills. The equipment, FMJ rounds 2, FMJ rounds 3, EMP rounds 2, and Dog Tag. Now I'll get into my reasons as for why I choose these. 1. The Fever skill of Hot Dogger. The reason why I personally think Hot Dogger is the best option overall is, well, there's many reasons. One, it has the lowest cooldown of all of the Hoover Fever skills. 122 minutes for the Samurai Edge, 5 minutes for the Rocket Launcher, but only a minute and a half for the Hot Dog. Two, the Hot Dogger allows you to escape grabs in a lot of situations. Sometimes you need to breach through a door, but there's zombies on the other end of it, and you know that, hey, that zombie's probably going to grab me as soon as I get through. You activate the Hot Dogger right before you burst through, you can counter that grab and maybe prevent yourself from being downed. You can also use it to, in the case of like there's a huge cluster of zombies, sometimes you just want to stab the hell out of everything. Maybe there's a lot of other melee, maybe they're not high infection builds, say like maybe against an Annette that isn't running heavy infection. You can just start stabbing everything, doesn't cost you ammo. And you can also use it, say, even if you're in a low pressure situation, say maybe you snuck around to a biocore in Area 3, you don't have much ammo, you can use the Hot Dogger and just stab the thing a bunch of times over and over again. It's not a very quick way of doing it, but sometimes it can save you that ammo that you might need otherwise, or maybe you just don't have entirely. Also, the fact that you deal fire damage allows you to kill IVs, which are pretty common in the current state of the game, usually against Spencers or Annette. So having that utility of being able to deal with IVs is really, really useful. Also, the fact that it's on the lowest cooldown means that you get counter surveillance up for as often as possible whenever you do need to use your feet. As for the personal skill, I use Alpha Team. Now, the reason why Alpha Team is using this build is that this build utilizes the shotgun, and with what Alpha Team, the amount of the duration that Alpha Team lasts is very strong when it comes to how much burst damage you can put out with a shotgun. Uh, with an Alpha Team dodge, if you're using a yellow boost, you Alpha Team dodge into a biocore and you start blasting with the shotgun, you're going to get it to less than a half health by yourself in less than 8 shots. And then you can usually take out a full HP biocore, so it doesn't have any HP increases, usually between 10 to 12 shots. It's a very strong burst damage, and again, more damage you do, recharge the fever faster, kills things quicker, so you don't need to use as much ammo. So this is, in a way, and also an economy option. However, maybe you want to use rapid cooldown as a more defensive option. Personally, I wouldn't recommend it, but I could see it working. Either way, Elf Team is, in my opinion, the way to go. Do a lot of damage. Boom. Passive skill number 1, Counter Surveillance. Now, this build is kind of like a do everything Jill build. You are useful against every single mastermind, every build, pretty much. And this is why you have counter surveillance. You can do a lot of damage to cameras. You can do a lot of damage to traps in the event of like a trap Alex. You can just one-shot most for cameras, or sorry, your traps. It just overall provides so much utility. Like sometimes if say you're this build can deal with creatures from like Alex and Daniel. It can deal with Nikolai cameras. It can deal with traps. It just deals with everything, and counter surveillance is key to it. That's why I would personally recommend counter surveillance with this build, just so you have just so much utility. Especially in solo queue, you can do anything against any build. Passive skill number 2, Marksman. Now, while it's true that the shotgun does not benefit from Marksman, the key use of Marksman is to make your Area 1 stronger. A lot of times in Area 1, you either don't get a shotgun, or maybe you don't want to buy it. Maybe you want to get a green herb, or a yellow herb, or a blue herb to go against Alex, and you can't afford to buy a shotgun. This allows you to use your starting MUP in Area 1 really effectively. If you get focus shots, and you land headshots on creatures, you can easily, on a crate, you can easily do over 1,000 damage. Very effective, and it just allows you. It just gives you a stronger area one, so that you don't have to buy a Matilda, you don't have to buy a Quick Draw, and please, for the love of God, do not buy an MQ-11. Now, so the equipment: FMJ rounds 2, FMJ rounds 3, of course, dog tags. You do a lot more damage. It just, I mean, that's always useful. Doing more damage is always useful, and this provides you you're very useful against a lot of creature builds, against biocores, and uh, anyway. And then you have EMP rounds 2. Again, combined with counter surveillance, you're doing a whole lot of camera damage. You're pretty much like you're kind of like January, except I mean you don't have hack obviously, but you're like January except you do a hell of a lot more damage in situations that aren't revolving around cameras. So that's why personally I would run that. Now there are some variants to this build for this kind of like do every thing Jill kind of build. So what I would personally do is if you want to do something else, there's a few other options. You can take FMJ rounds 2 off, and you can replace them with, say, now if you want like a more defensive option and more burst potential when you have a yellow herb up, you could use supplements 3. I think it's a viable alternative, but personally I prefer FMJ because you're not necessarily going to have yellow herbs up all the time. Kind of a trade-off, but they're both good. You could also, of course, run Baton. This allows you to one-shot level 1 doors with Jill, and also decreases the time you need to do the security device in Area 2. You're kind of like a pseudo speedrun Jill running Baton. So that, that just gives you extra utility, although beware, if you one-shot level 1 doors, it might impede your ability to do the grenade tech. If you don't know about that, I'll cover that. And another alternative to the Baton, and this is probably not going to come to a surprise to anyone, is a first aid spray. You have a first aid spray again, do a whole lot of utility. Someone goes down, you pick their ass right back up. It's especially good on Jill since she has a dodge. If used effectively, she can dodge a lot of things. She also has increased movement speed by default over normal characters. And so just having that first aid spray is very, very valuable. Although personally the build I run is with FMJ5, those are some viable alternatives. Now, there is also the speedrun Jill variant that you may or may not have seen. And this is, in my opinion, the best way to do it. Baton, USB 2, USB 3, and skateboard. Now, some people replace USB 2 with army boots, and while that is a more fun way to play, absolutely, the most effective way to do the speedrun is with USB drive 2 instead of army boot. The reason for that is getting those security terminals done really quickly is incredibly useful. There's been so many times where even shaving off half a second from that terminal is the difference between getting it done or not. Especially if you're going against terminal cheese Spencer. If you're tired of those Spencers, you just stay behind a shield 100% of the time. They just keep hitting you with goops, with air guns, with, all sorts of shots. Having this extra USB 2 on is crucial. That terminal cheese build is mostly a joke if you're running USB 7, which is all 3 of these combined. This is, in my opinion, the best way to run a speedrun build for Area 2. Also, if you're running the speedrun variant, I would personally still recommend Hot Dogger, but I would change to Rapid Cooldown here. And you can either use counter surveillance to give you some extra utility from when you're not doing speedrunning, say in like Area 1 and Area 2, or like when you're not running the key card. You could also do Master Key, especially if you're not running with the Tyrone on the team. Master can be useful. But if you're running on the Tyrone on the team, maybe you want to consider counter surveillance. I think they're both good options. They just provide different things. Oh, not medic, no. And again, I would still go with Marksman. Again, gives you a strong Area 1 when you're forced to use them up. If you don't get a shotgun, having that extra damage to them up is very valuable. Alright, well, that's it for my Jill builds, and hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll see you all later.